In the early hours of August 8, 2016, a critical power anomaly rippled through DeltaAirLines' Atlanta data center, initiating a chain of failures that, in just 11 minutes, brought one of the world's largest airlines to its knees, revealing how a single, seemingly minor technical oversight could threaten to unravel an entire global operation. This was not a cybersecurity attack, nor a dramatic structural failure, but a silent, insidious glitch within the very heart of its digital nervous system, poised to cost Delta hundreds of millions and fracture the trust of millions of travelers. At precisely 2:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time, an unscheduled power dip struck the main data center. For any modern airline, such fluctuations are a constant threat, anticipated and protected against by layers of redundancy, uninterruptible power supplies, backup generators, and elaborate failover protocols designed to seamlessly shift operations to secondary systems. Delta had all of these. Yet, on that particular night, every single one of them failed to perform as designed, not due to a hardware malfunction, but because of a software glitch deeply embedded within their intricate network. The system, rather than gracefully transitioning, simply froze. Imagine a global airline, controlling thousands of flights, tracking hundreds of thousands of passengers, managing millions of pieces of luggage, all operating on a razor's edge of precise timing and interconnected data. Now imagine that entire intricate network suddenly going dark. Not some systems, not a partial outage, but a complete, deafening digital silence across its operational brain. What happened in those harrowing 11 minutes? As the power briefly faltered, the sophisticated systems that should have isolated the issue and brought backups online instead became corrupted. The crucial software components designed to manage the failover process encountered an error, a bug that prevented them from correctly initiating the transfer. Instead of a smooth handover, they began to report conflicting information, then simply ceased to respond. For those brief minutes, as the digital darkness spread, the actual magnitude of the problem was still unfolding, a slow-motion catastrophe for those few engineers watching their screens turn ominously blank. The cascade was instant and brutal. Within moments, the flight dispatch system, the very software that tells pilots where to go and when, went silent. Gate assignments vanished. Crew scheduling dissolved into chaos. Crucially, the passenger check-in and boarding systems became unresponsive. It wasn't just a local issue. It was a systemic paralysis that spread globally, infecting every Delta terminal, every check-in kiosk, every gate agent's computer, every pilot's flight plan across 6 continents. Think about the sheer impossibility of running an airline without these digital lifelines. Pilots couldn't receive flight plans. Ground crews couldn't access manifests. Baggage handlers couldn't track luggage. Passengers couldn't check in or board. The entire meticulously choreographed dance of modern air travel ground to an immediate, grinding halt. Was this the moment an airline truly began to unravel? The initial disruption snowballed with terrifying speed. In Atlanta, Delta's nerve center, the immense operations room, usually a hive of controlled activity, descended into an eerie quiet as screens flickered and died. What do you do when the tools you rely on for every single decision suddenly offer nothing but an error message, or worse, just a blank screen? Airline operations run on a continuous loop, like a relentless conveyor belt. Every grounded plane means delayed subsequent flights, crew rest limits being breached, passenger connections missed, and cargo stranded. Each minute the systems were down wasn't just lost revenue, it was a compound interest nightmare, adding to an already insurmountable operational debt. How quickly could such a crisis bleed an airline dry? As the sun began to rise across the eastern seaboard, thousands of Delta passengers arrived at airports, only to find chaotic scenes. Lines snaked out of terminals. Frustrated travelers, armed with booking confirmations, found themselves staring at blank check-in screens. Gate agents, usually empowered by instant data, were reduced to scribbling notes on paper, struggling to communicate with a distant, silent control center. The human cost was immediate and palpable. The official statement from Delta was terse: a power outage in Atlanta. But the reality was far more complex and insidious. The problem wasn't merely the power cut, it was the inherent flaw in the failover system. A software bug that should have been a last line of defense but instead became the point of catastrophic vulnerability. A minor power glitch had exposed a gaping chasm in their technological armor. Imagine the engineers and IT specialists, working against the clock in that darkened data center. They weren't just fighting a power failure. They were battling a digital ghost, a corrupted state within their network that resisted every attempt to reboot, every effort to bring systems back online. It was a war against an invisible enemy, a single line of bad code, perhaps, or a configuration error, that had now brought a global enterprise to its knees. For hours, Delta scrambled to manually process flights, but the sheer scale was overwhelming. Thousands of departures were delayed, then cancelled. Across the globe, some pilots, already airborne, were ordered to divert to other airports, uncertain when their next instructions would come. The ripple effect was immense, costing the airline not just immediate revenue, but also the incalculable damage of eroding customer trust and loyalty. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a chilling echo of similar failures across industries. What hidden vulnerabilities lie dormant in the systems we rely on every single day? This Delta incident underscored a terrifying truth. The more complex and interconnected our technology becomes, the more fragile its foundation can appear when a single, tiny defect is triggered. Ultimately, Delta estimated the financial impact of this single, 11-minute initiated system failure to be over $100 million in lost revenue, refunds, and compensation. It stranded hundreds of thousands of passengers, caused widespread chaos, and significantly damaged their reputation. While Delta, a giant in the industry, ultimately recovered, the incident served as a stark, visceral reminder. It was a vivid demonstration that in the intricate, high-stakes world of aviation, everything can indeed hang by the thinnest of digital threads, and a seemingly innocuous glitch, acting in just a few critical minutes, can push an entire global operation to the precipice of ruin. The next time you step onto a plane, consider the invisible dance of code that makes it all possible, and the ever-present shadow of system failure lurking just beneath the surface.